Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3-Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White. Wow.
And I'm Will Terry. We are not stopping this intro.
We are starting over.
That's perfect. I love that.
It's like pulling off a triple Lutz twisting and then just crashing on the landing.
It's rare that like Jake botches his own name. Like that's all reset. We have to remember is our name. That's literally the only thing.
Computer glitch.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3-Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry. And all three of us are professional illustrators. We've all worked for all the major publishers in the business. We've published somewhere around 50, 75 books between us. And we've all taught illustration at the university.
Each week we come at you with a different topic in illustration. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue, but each time you're going to learn something brand spanking new.
Okay, great.
Lee, have you noticed that your camera like jiggles around a lot, like when you move?
No.
Let's if you want to see Lee's jiggling.
This podcast is going to be interesting today.
This is going to be a good one. You got to go to YouTube and look at Jake laughing. He's crying right now. He can't even breathe.
Come watch the jiggle on YouTube, everyone.
Society of Visual Storytelling is our YouTube channel.
Oh my
gosh. We jiggle. Each week we jiggle. Sometimes we jiggle for you. Other times we jiggle for ourselves. Each week.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't know why that got me so good. I'm dying. Oh, I got tears. All right. I was going to ask you guys if we had any follow-up on anything from previous episodes, if you had any NFT stuff, NFT stuff you wanted to talk about, or I don't know why I got the tickles.
I don't. Do you have anything, Lee, on that?
Just one thing. I want to love you, NFT. You got the loving girl, NFT.
Okay.
And I'll take you there. Yeah.
Now, have you made any money off of yours, Lee?
No, mine went through the auction process and did not sell.
Okay.
I had it for sale for $1,000. I just arbitrarily picked that. As you know, if you heard the NFT story, I think they're all valueless, but I probably shouldn't say that out loud in case you want to buy mine. Mine is worth value.
And see, we definitely disagree on that. I think some of them will always retain value, and I think some of them will crash. So
yeah. But like you said in that episode, it's the value of the creator, not really the fact that it's an NFT. I mean, if Banksy drinks coffee and puts it for sale, it'll sell. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like who did the shoes this past week that were the
Lil Nas
sold out in first day, maybe even first couple of hours, and they're $1,000 a pair plus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we came up with our own shoes, they would not sell at $1,000 plus, and we would not sell out. So it has to do with who made it.
Yeah. Yep. And I will say this too. I found a place, a platform that does NFT art right. It checks all my boxes that I had concerns about. It's eco-friendly. It's it's artist friendly. So it's created by artists. So when that thing launches, I'll be sure to talk to you guys about it, but it's really cool. So
you're not going to tease what it is, huh?
I can't. I signed an NDA.
Oh.
So let's move forward. And we've got a few questions here from our mailbag, our SVS mailbag. So first one is a softball slow pitch, and it's this. It comes from Ben.
Hold on 1 second before you do that. Let's tell people, because all of you at home or in your car, wherever you're listening, have questions that you are dying to know, and you can send them in to us at our website. You want to give them that info? So we love taking questions from you guys. We're building a huge document with all these questions. Yeah. So give them the info.
We can't promise that we'll give you good answers.
And we can't promise we'll give you timely answers. Like if you need an answer right away, this is the worst way to get an answer because we're weeks behind these questions coming in. So if it's time sensitive, email us directly, message us in our DMs or something like that. But if you have a question that you want answered on the show, go to svslearn.com, click on the little link at the top that says podcast. And there, right on the podcast page, there'll be a submit a question link right there. So, okay, this one comes from Ben. He says, "What drew you to illustration?" And drew is in quotes because it's a pun. He punned us. Mm-hmm. He says, "I think you've touched on this before, but why are you guys doing illustrations as a career as opposed to something else, even in the art world, like graphic design, fine art, comic books, concept art, etc.? What brought you to where you are right now, and why are you staying on that path?" Your pen pal, Ben. So why illustration, you guys? Why didn't you get into graphic design? Why didn't you get into any other art field, or why art at all? Like, I have friends who are amazing artists, and they decided to pursue another career path and do art as a hobby. So why subject yourself to this life of uncertainty and everything that you have to deal with being an artist and an illustrator?
Lee looks like he really wants to go first.
The sad answer for me is I would be terrible at anything else. That's sort of what it comes down to. Like when I was a teenager going through that kind of phase where you're working all these different jobs, as a landscaper and worked food service, and I was a host at a restaurant, fired from all of them. Total disaster.
Just fired. Yeah.
I remember I was working at a clothing store one time, and it was so hot outside, and we had to bring all this clothes in from a truck. And those circular racks, that they're in the store. It was all air conditioned in there, and I was so hot and so tired that I got inside the circle rack of pants or whatever, and I fell asleep. Totally fell asleep, and I woke up I guess my foot had fallen out into the aisle, and then I was getting nudged, and I woke up, and there's
that's hilarious.
You can leave. So that's my skill set outside of illustration, but it does speak to a certain kind of personality type. I just was never the type that I could do stuff that I didn't really enjoy. And speaking to the other areas of art, I've never heard a graphic designer say, you ask them to go do something on the weekend, they're like, "No, man, I got this personal logo that I'm just dying to work on." That just doesn't it doesn't happen. There's just not a level of passion. I'm going to make a newsletter and a brochure just for fun. You don't hear that.
You are going to piss people off because that is not true.
People doing newsletters and brochures for fun.
Okay. Sometimes we disagree on this podcast, you guys. This is one of them.
Let's hear it, Will.
I had a job at the University of Maryland in a graphic arts department. And let me back up before that. I've always loved making art of some kind, drawing, painting. And I got this graphic design job where I could make newsletters, logos. I was working on a brochure project one time, and this is in the late 80s. Okay. And I remember I'd wake up in the morning and I would go, "Oh my gosh," pinch myself, I get to go work on this brochure. I used to love it. I mean, and I've loved every aspect.
I'm not saying there's no redeeming quality to do those kind of art forms are made. People are great at them, but just the personal satisfaction, I would think, would wane over time because you're just advertising things or you're just putting down information. I mean, I know it's fun.
I think we all tend to love the thing that we're into. Now, I get you when you're saying, I think there's an evolution of artists out of so I think there's phases. I think there's the phase where you're a kid and you're making art, and you're making it for fun. And then I remember going to art class in high school, and that was my thing I look forward to all day if I got to go to, the days that I got to go to art class. Then you get out, and phase 2 is you get paid for making art, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people we have to think that other people are like us, right? I mean, I don't know what it's like to be you guys. I'm glad I don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scary thought. But joking aside, I think that we have to think that other people in the world, especially in the art world, are like us and have similar motivations. And I remember this phase 2, the getting paid for making art. I didn't care what it was. I just cared that I got to go and do something that wasn't, I was a carpenter's helper. And I hated that.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't digging footers. I wasn't roofing. I wasn't doing all this other stuff. And I was tickled. But then I think where you are now, Lee, if I may be so bold to judge you based on you're entering phase 3, which is you can make a living doing art for hire, and now you want to make art that you want to make. And I do too. I'm in phase 3 too. That's what gets me excited more so than phase 2. But I think when you're
I have a different take. You ready for this? I think if you are an illustrator stuck doing graphic design, you're not going to want to do a brochure on the weekend for fun. I think if you're a graphic designer doing graphic design, heck yeah, you're going to be like designing logos on weekends just for fun. You're going to be like,
no.
I'm serious. Lee, how many graphic designers do you follow on Instagram?
Tons.
No, serious. I follow.
Wait. There's graphic designers on there?
Yes. Come on.
Hey, send your hate mail, you graphic designers listening. Send it to Lee White.
At one point, I was following probably 30 different graphic designers on Instagram. And the dudes, I should say, they're men and women. They are constantly like, when we sit down to do a sketch and have fun, like they're sitting down and designing a logo for fun, and it may not be a logo for anything, but they're just adding it to their portfolio. This one guy I follow, Alan Peters, he's designing a logo for every new 1,000 followers he gets. So when he goes from 51,000 to 52,000, he does a 52 logo, and then a 53 logo, and then a 54 logo, and it's super cool. And so I think if you're really, really into it, it's the thing that you're doing, even for fun. So like, I don't know that graphic designers.
I will concede that I've got David Carson's, both his books. You guys know who he is?
No, do I?
Oh, classic. You must not follow graphic designers that much, but it's David Carson, very famous graphic designer. He was an art director for Ray Gun magazine, if you remember that, and he did Surfing magazine for years. He was kind of the responsible for that whole sort of counterculture look with the type, really distressed type and type sort of all over the place. And both of his books are very experimental. One of his books in particular called The End of Print. It's gorgeous. And it is fine art, in my opinion, as it's graphic design as fine art, and it's gorgeous.
Another favorite graphic designer of mine is Aaron Draplin of Draplin Design Company. And if you don't know this guy, like he's a character for one. Like I love his whole persona and everything. But two, he's eats, breathes, lives graphic design. And I actually have a book of his, but it's behind my other book, so I can't grab it. But he put together a book which was like, it's called Pretty Much Everything, which is everything he's ever created from, in the first 30 years of his career. And there's scraps of paper with like little sketches for a logo on there. There's all of these like logos that he's collected over the years at garage sales and things. Like he'll pick stuff up, turn it over, snap a picture of it. But check him out. He's really cool. And I think we're really getting off the question here, which is what drew you to illustration?
Just talking about the value of graphic design,
right?
That's how quickly we can derail.
Yeah, but I will say this: I'm with Lee, and I think Will's the same. We're in this because we're not qualified to do anything else. It's either be a full-time illustrator, an independent artist who like makes books and stuff, or it's like I could get a job like at Costco, not that I'm not disparaging anybody that works at Costco, but I'm not qualified to manage, to be a middle manager of a team. I'm not qualified, I don't know how to run, I don't know how to do law. I don't know how to do any of this, like anything that is like a valid career. Right. I know how to draw. I know how to create images. I know how to tell stories. And so that's where I'm at. I wasn't good in high school. I mean, my grades were horrible. I wasn't good at college. I think there may have been an attention problem or just laziness. I don't know.
I think that's consistent with all of us. I mean, at least for I don't mean all artists in general, but just
I did horrible in school. Yeah.
What was your high school grade point average? Do you remember?
I'm embarrassed to say.
So I don't know. I can't remember because I didn't pay attention to that stuff. The only time I ever paid attention was it was graduation day, and they I think they ordered you in the person with the highest GPA to the person with the lowest. No, maybe it was alphabetical. I can't remember. I just remember someone saying to me, "Oh, look, you are in." So it was a graduation class of 500, and you're number 251. So I was
right in the middle.
Right, you did pretty good.
That was me, right in the middle.
I barely squeaked out of high school, and that's what I feel most proud about of all that stuff was I had a 1.9 grade point average, total bottom of the class. But then when I was in college the first time and didn't know what I wanted to do, I would also 2.0. I mean, just horrible grades because I just did not care enough I just didn't have any focus. And then when I found art and specifically illustration, I had a 4.0 average in undergrad and a 4.0 average in my graduate studies. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on what kind of person you are. And that was the same way with jobs, bringing it back around to that. If I wasn't truly interested in it, I just didn't have enough, I don't know what the right word is, responsibility, focus. I don't know what it is.
You just don't care.
I'd rather be poor. I mean, I would rather have had no money.
That was me. I specifically remember in college trying to study for some of my academic classes, going to the library, trying to be the good student and just forcing myself to do it and being there for like 30 or 45 minutes and going, this is pointless. I can't concentrate. I can't read this for the fourth time and still not get anything out of it. I'm out of here. And I got great grades in my BFA project, in all of my art classes, but in the generals, but one thing that I wanted to add to this question is the reason that I had the opportunity to go into photography. I started out in graphic design with that job at the University of Maryland and later at BYU, the college that I went to. I had a graphic design job there too. And I thought I was going to go graphic design. The thing that swayed me was I realized more than making something look beautiful, I wanted to tell a story. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what got me. When I took my first illustration class, I was like, okay. And I had started, it was kind of full circle because in high school, I was drawing basically illustrations, didn't know it. But it's like, that's where I kind of naturally was. So I found myself going, okay. And someone told me, one of my student peers, and when I was in school said, well, the graphic designers have the more stable situation because the money flows through a company into the graphic design department, and then they hire freelance illustration from there. Mm-hmm. So if you want more job security, you should go graphic design. And I remember really waffling. And I still remember because this is when I had to declare my major. I had a year of the pre-BFA classes. And then after that sophomore year, you have to make a decision. It's a fork in the road. And I remember putting graphic design and then erasing it out and putting illustration.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I was just like, go with the safe thing. Yeah. No, I got to do me.
Right.
Well, let the chips fall where they may.
There's probably a certain amount of reinforcement that happens too, that I think that pushes people to pick whatever path they're going to be, whether it's illustration or whether it's tennis or whatever you're going to do. If you start it and all of a sudden you start getting positive feedback, I think that's such a vital thing in life, as kids grow up and stuff. And I remember when, I came to all this stuff really late. And that the first group of paintings that I did, that wasn't even for a class, I'm just doing them in my garage. As I showed them around, people would come to my house or whatever. And the feedback I got was so much bigger than lip service. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like, oh, cool, or somebody just saying, hey, that's a nice painting, just that, whatever, pat on the back. It was people being like, oh, I'd like to buy this. You know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. Or you should go talk to this gallery and they'll show your work, or a restaurant. You show a lot of cafes and restaurants when you're just starting out. And that feedback was like, wait, I enjoyed making that thing. And then all of a sudden these people want to do something with it, or somebody wants to buy it. That was huge in terms of making an actual decision to say, okay, I guess I'm going to be an illustrator. I'm going to go to school for this and try to do it for a living. I don't think I would have done that without that positive reinforcement that said, hey, you might be pretty good at this.
You bring up a really good point too, because I wonder how many people have gone into illustration or any sort of art career that's kind of risky, that isn't guaranteed stable income. I wonder how many of those people either had super supportive parents that were like, yeah, you could do anything, or parents that absolutely didn't believe in them and they're like, screw you, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. Like, right. Like I have a feeling that factor plays really, really hard in it. Like what you're raised as. So you're either so independent from whatever your parents think that you're just going to go do whatever you want to do, or you're relying heavily on your parents' encouragement. And so if you're like one of these people that really cares what your parents think and you trust them and you want to do what they say, and they say, don't be an illustrator, go do this other thing, chances are you're going to go do the other thing. But if you don't, like, if you're like, oh, my parents really, I appreciate them, I love them, thankful for all that they've done, for me growing up, but they don't know what I'm really about and this path that I want to follow, that's probably going to lead to the person taking that path as well.
Now, let me ask you this to play devil's advocate of that same. Yeah. The other side of that coin is what I call the American Idol syndrome, where you like, those people who sound like a dying cat, but they think they sound like Whitney Houston. I mean, that's a problem. When people can't see their actual skill level. So, how do you judge which one you are?
Yeah. So I think going back to what you were saying, Lee, and that was having that positive reinforcement that's genuine and outside of people who have a vested interest, right. Because I think a lot of times in those situations where a kid is brought up thinking they're an amazing singer and they haven't, it could be that the parents and the circle around them, I don't know what the dynamic is there, but if their kid isn't successful, it could be that means they're not successful, And so some of that might play into it. We're getting into deep psychology here, which we are not qualified to.
I'm wondering if I should send my son to American Idol now or not.
Oh boy, whatever. I don't care if you send your son or not. I just want you to steer clear of that place yourself. So
I want to love you.
No. Okay, next question. Okay. I'll say this too. The last part, he says, what brought you to where you are right now, and why are you staying on that path? I think we've pretty much answered that. It's like, what else are we going to do? Like, I still though, I have these things that I would like to try out. Like, I think it'd be cool to have a printing press and like just make cool little books and things like that. It's tangential to what I do, but I'm not doing that because I think the true passion really is in, I got to tell a story with my art. So anyways, this is our next question from Marta. She says, help. I have a 32-page children's book to illustrate in 2.5 months. Oh boy. So here's what she says. Let's break this down. She says, first, I want to thank you, Jake, Lee, and Will, for the quality of the podcasts. We're always going to read a compliment. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. She says, your advice in the videos of your own personal accounts and your classes on the SVSLearn platform. So she thanks us for all that. She says they've helped her fill some gaps in her art education. It's amazing the number of things that I had no idea that I didn't know. Okay, now I have the opportunity to illustrate my first book. I hope to receive the manuscript in mid-May. The situation is far from ideal. I have little time to illustrate and I lose all rights. But in my current situation, the payment is too good to refuse, the equivalent of 2 years of my cost of living. So good money, not a good deal, right?
I think it's a good deal.
So
good deal, yeah.
Well, yeah,
is she
it's good money.
Is she asking, should she take the job, or how does she navigate the job?
I'm not done yet. So here's what she said. In terms of time management, I'm planning on giving thumbnailing more time to get the concept right and have good ideas for the drawings. If something must fall behind, I imagine it would be better to be painting. What are your thoughts on this, and what steps and priorities would you take if you're in my place? Thanks in advance for all the help. Best regards from Portugal, Marta. So the question, she's not asking, should she take this job? It sounds like her decision's made up.
She's taking it.
The money's good. She's taking it. So now how does she accomplish this? Where do you put your duck sauce? Like, is it in the front end or in the back end, right? Like, is it going to be making sure like the storytelling all works, or is it making sure the illustrations all look pretty?
If this was mine, man, that there's one step one that cannot be overlooked, and this is something that a lot of new illustrators overlook, is ask for the time. I mean, I don't know what the answer is going to be for that, and of course, we'll answer the rest of it if it is going to be seriously 2.5 months. But I swear, every time I've asked, I think there's a real deadline, and I ask for more time, I get it. So just don't think that there's not something else that you can get, especially if it's, couched under the idea that I really want to make this product as good as it possibly can. And in order to do that, it's going to take this amount of time. And I would even break down that email to, I'm going to give 3 weeks to sketches and blah, 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 here's some color studies, and then how long the finishes will really actually take you, and show them why you're coming up with it. It's not just a random date in the future, but it's based on, moving this thing forward in a reasonable and professional way.
Okay. So
having said that, though, I have bumped into where, no, we do not have any more time. So she might be in that situation.
No, right. I'm just saying that first off, ask. But yeah.
Definitely ask for more time. Sometimes, though, have you guys ever done this where you ask for more time, you get it, and you still end up in the pickle because then you sell some of that time to another client? I know you guys have done that. I know
Never.
You slide other projects in there because guess what? You got more time. You can afford to. And now you're in the same exact situation. But yeah, I would schedule everything out. I'm sure she's already thinking along those lines, and just keep a really strict schedule of where you need to be, when you need to be there. And then even on that schedule, once I have my schedule, I don't schedule the last week. So I would schedule all the time except for the last week. So move your deadline up a week.
Right.
And try to be done a week early so you have one more week to tweak stuff, and try to forget about that extra week. Like make it even harder on yourself.
Yeah.
I would say go ahead.
Well, but the question is, which is better, the layout or the finished art, like the painting
all of it
part?
All of it.
If you have to choose, give one priority over the other. You guys are dodging this question.
No, the way to handle that part of it is look at the whole project with your deadline in mind, and see how you can adjust it both from the front end and from the painting stage. At the front end, things I would start to look at is how much background can I eliminate from these spreads? Maybe there's, say you're drawing the interior of a room, even get rid of that, the ground plane line where the wall meets the floor. Like there's no wall, there's no floor. Basically, there's no background. I buy all the John Klassen books you can. And start to design that way. It's like basically I think of it as a set for a play. Like they don't build an entire forest or something. They just have 2 or 3 trees, and then you think, okay, that's a forest. And so that's how I'd start to think about layout. And then likewise, moving forward to the finish, do you actually need to turn form in a realistic way, or can you block in form like Mike Mignola and lay in solid blacks or something like that? That all of a sudden is going to speed you up a massive way. So you look to each stage and say, what can I do to streamline that part of it, and you'll save a massive amount of time.
One thing
you might even illustrate a better book.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing too, implying what's back there can save you a lot of time and looks really cool. So like Lee said, 3 trees equals a forest, a picture frame and like a chair equals a room, a cloud and maybe some flowers in the background equals you're outside. So you could get away with a lot of that. And if you put all your time into 1 or 2 really finished, lavish illustrations, it'll make the rest of it feel like your brain can kind of fill in the blanks for the rest of them.
Now, devil's advocate, if she, just to insert this, is that, she might have a style that, they hired her to do her style and she can't change that style. So
she shouldn't change the style. Like her art director and the general public won't know she's making these decisions. You know what I mean? If you choose to leave something out, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're going to just totally blank space, but you know what I mean? There's always a ways to simplify and keep a style. I mean, look at N.C. Wyeth. Those paintings that he does, they look so full and so rich. And if you look at what he actually painted, there's not much there.
Yeah. I would say too, like when I think about it, this is a quick turnaround. I don't think this book's going to win any awards. I don't think this book's going to be on, usually the books that are on lists and high reviews and big, awards, in the awards circuit and stuff like that. Those are usually books that have a ramp up and the illustrator has time to do it. And usually when a publisher needs something turned around this quick, it's something that they're just like, okay, we've got a list of books we've got to get out this year. Oh shoot, we're behind on this one. Let's just find an artist to get it knocked out. So I kind of feel like I would make I would put your time and effort into making some pretty illustrations, as opposed to making the layout and the storytelling, spending time there, because you could use those pretty illustrations for more work and more portfolios. And if they're not pretty, you just don't have, it's harder for someone to look through that to see how well your storytelling is, right? Like to see the overall storytelling of it. So I would say put your time and energy into making a very pretty book, have it be a portfolio piece or as pretty as you can make in 2.5 months, and have a few portfolio pieces you can pull out of it, and then work on getting your next book project where you can spend 6 months or a year on it.
Have you guys been pushed up against this actual problem in real life? Is that how you solved it?
So many times.
Where you literally don't have enough time. I mean, like if somebody said you need to illustrate a book in 2.5 months and I don't have sketches even done right now, I'm in trouble. I don't know if I can pull that off.
Well, and that's a whole nother topic, because, you're looking at your career and you know that your future work is dependent on the work that you're doing today. So it's a catch-22, because, this is the classic problem of an artist trying to make money and do art at the same time, where ideally everything you put into your art is the best you can ever possibly do, so that you're building your portfolio and your reputation, so that you are getting bigger and better clients and budgets and time frames in the future. So this is, when you're bumping up against this, it's hurting that, like those trade-offs are going to hurt you somewhere. And so I think, Jake, you're saying manage those. Another way to look at it is like you're saying, get some portfolio pieces out of this so that you can leverage them into getting more work later on. You may look at that as the whole book, or you may look at that as getting a few pieces that you can show in your portfolio.
That's what I was thinking.
Like a few pieces, or maybe the whole thing doesn't have to work cohesively as this amazing book for your portfolio. Maybe I've done that many times.
But I think a key flaw is to assume that the deadline is set, assume that the style you have to do it in is set, just making these assumptions that can kill the level that you can bring this at. I just was thinking about a time where I had this specific problem. I was doing a bunch of work for Amazon, and I had, I think, like 4 books that I was doing for them, and it both a time crunch, and I did not like the rights that they were giving me. So I was like kind of soured on the whole thing anyway. Amazon sucks for that, by the way, for rights. I don't know if they've changed it, but they're awful. So don't work for them if they still have the bad rights. But I switched my style to just a simple 2-color job, like black, a color, and then the white of the paper. So there was ultimately 3 colors I could use, and they were flat. And I leaned on line work a lot more heavily, and they were super fun pieces. And they actually informed, Amazon was really happy with them. I didn't tell them that I was going to do that. It wasn't my style at all. They were happy with them. And then the next book that I did, which was a YA novel that had like 50 illustrations, I used that exact style for the interiors. And so that basically has driven how I do interiors now for books. So it worked out, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Any follow-up to that, or anything we move on to the next one?
I wish you good luck. It's exciting too. I mean, you have work, right? I mean, it's exciting to be an illustrator, to get work, especially getting, I think that's a huge win, getting 2 years worth of income.
It's a huge win as an illustrator.
That's a huge win. And I did a book like that for a Christian press early on in my career, where it was a buyout. I personally think that publishers are dumb for doing buyouts, because they've taken okay, so if the illustrator's committed and has a good perspective on their career and understands how important it is that they put their best work into the thing that they're working on, then okay, the publisher wins. But when they buy you out of your future royalties, then they're taking away your care. They're, in some ways, they're going to be buying you out of like, well, I don't care if this sells well, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not getting anything more. So I think it's a dumb thing for publishers to do. But I understand why some of them do it. Anyway, yeah.
Next question: how to deal with opportunity costs? I'm still new to the industry, but I'm doing well enough to call myself a full-time children's book illustrator. Congratulations. That's awesome. I started out with working on projects which paid between $3K to $5K, but I've been fortunate enough to have landed a picture book deal with one of the top 5 trade publishers in the US, sort of like my dream project. During this time, this person's lower paying illustration jobs finally landed a job with a big publisher. This is cool. During this time, I was offered another book deal for a handsome sum, but had to decline because the publisher didn't have flexibility with the schedule. Honestly, my main reason for wanting that project was the money. It was a work for hire contract and targeted as an educational book, so it didn't hurt that much turning it down. But then I psyched myself out thinking, what if I did accept the book deal and instead had to decline the big trade publisher project? I would love some advice on how to deal with opportunity costs when accepting any project. I do think I have potential to attract good work opportunities, but I also don't want to miss out on decent projects that I can get because I'm being stupidly hopeful. So it's a common dilemma. You've got this one job with a big publisher, then this other job comes, might even pay more than that, but it's not it's not with a big publisher. It's probably not going to be seen by as many people. It's used for other purposes. There's not the glitz and the glamour that comes with it. So what do you guys do in those situations? How do you deal with that opportunity cost?
One of the best advantages of being a freelancer is you're not an employee, right? You're not employed, and no one can manage your time. You're managing your time. No one has to see your timesheet. And so this is my best advice on managing opportunity cost is always ask. It comes full circle to the other question is ask for as much extra time as you can, even if you don't need it. Because the thing is, you're trying to average out over a year. You're trying to make sure that your time's full. And so, so then the client that has the short deadline comes in first, and then another client might come in with the same kind of a short deadline. But if you can say, man, I really want to work on the first one that comes in, if you say, I really want to work on this, but I need more time, and you don't, right? In real life, you don't need more time, but you say you do because you don't know if that other client is going to come in, and now you can slide that one under. If the other guy doubled up your time, the first one, now you can start working on the other one. And I've done that so many times, and you have to. That's a big complaint actually in the contracting world is, when you're getting someone to come and work on, let's say, your roof, you got a leaky roof, and you hire a roofer to come, and they're all excited to come and see you and estimate your roof. And then we'll get on that, and then they don't show up, and then they start delaying. Well, that's because they're doing the same thing. They're trying to make sure that they can feed their family. They're trying to make sure that their plate stays full. So they've got you committed. They start on the job, and then all of a sudden they kind of disappear for a while. That's because they're working on someone else's roof that came in and said, I got to have this done or I'm going somewhere else.
Right.
And we're the same. We're
5 jobs at the same time.
Yeah, we're contractors. So we have to manage that opportunity cost. And for me, the number one way is getting more time even when you don't need it.
So Will's answer is there's no opportunity cost because you just do everything. I'll speak to that, and that is understanding what your priorities are at any given time, and then you'll be able to lean into that. If it's portfolio building and attracting a higher level of client, and you get an educational offer, you sort of know that that's not going to lead to that. You know what I mean? If you need to pay bills, and all of a sudden money's the most important thing, well, then you take something short term that may not be the most ideal illustration job or even portfolio generating, but it's solving that short term need. Some things are going to be more important at some times of your career than others, and you have to figure out what that is. It can't just be like, okay, I'm open for business and I'll take whatever. You really do need to drive your career forward, and that's one of the lures. And I guess that's one of the traps of educational publishing in my experience, especially with seeing a lot of people go through it, is they do a couple of jobs. Educational, for those of you guys who don't know, is where they buy all the rights. They typically pay really low, but they can keep you busy. I mean, they really can. They will work you because you're working for cheap, and and they own all the rights. They're going to keep hiring you. So then you get stuck in this cycle. Can you do it? Can you do it? You feel great in the beginning. Hey, I'm making it as a professional illustrator. It's exactly where you start asking that question. Like at first, it's like, hey, I just want to make some money and get some professional experience. Okay, here's an educational job. Okay, I'm going to do this for 6 months and I'm out. At that point, that getting published and being art directed and stuff like that won't be the number one priority. Then all of a sudden, getting new portfolio pieces and getting a higher level client will become the priority, and you leave the educational publisher behind. You got to pick what you want to do.
I think that's a really good point, and both of you kind of I think solved this problem. It's figure out what your priorities are. Is it is it a financial goal, or is it a career project goal? And once you have that in your mind, it doesn't matter what opportunities you say no to, they weren't going to feed into that, you accomplishing that goal. So if you're sitting there thinking like, oh man, I should have taken that education job, the money was really good, then maybe your priorities are money. And that is important. and that's totally fine. You gotta pay the bills and survive, right? So, but then I like Will's answer too. It's like, do what you got to do to pay the bills, and then make sure you're also doing what you got to do to build your portfolio. And I always like pointing to like Hollywood directors, because they're at like the pinnacle of, I think, the financial scale for creative work. These guys are getting paid millions. They're working on very high profile projects. They're working with hundreds, maybe thousands of people underneath them. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of things going on with that. And these guys are still doing one job for the studio to make money. They're doing, look at Christopher Nolan doing their Batman movies, and then they get to do their personal work. And then they got to do a Batman movie to fill up the bank account, and then they could do the personal work. Right. So, it's no different. It's no different on this level too. Like, it might be that you do something else to make money so that you can do these perhaps lower paying jobs, but will lead to a higher profile and lead to, some better paying gigs. But maybe it is, you have a part-time job or a full-time job and you're illustrating nights and weekends. That's totally a legitimate path to go down.
I've got an anecdote that go along with that is, you take my career, and I took everything that I could get my hands on for the first 15 to 20 years. And then I was able to, for the last 10, been really able to be a lot more picky. So things really worked out in my favor that way. However, you take Brett Hellquist, who illustrated the series of his probably most famous property is the series of unfortunate events. And he and I went to school together, and he took a completely different path. Instead of taking every job that came along, he was very picky, very protective of opportunity cost, and only took projects that he thought he could make, that he loved, that he could fall in love with. And he would work on one at a time, and he would turn down anything that came in because I'm working on this project that I'm trying to turn into gold. I mean, he would massage and just perfect every project that he put out. Well, he's a big name today, much bigger than me in the publishing world. And I've always looked at his career and gone, maybe I should have done it that way. But I was really focused on
how many people are listening to Brett Hillquist's podcast. None, because he doesn't have one.
That's true, but he doesn't have to have a podcast. He doesn't care. He's in his mansion overlooking the ocean while we're slogging it out down here. I will say that figuring out opportunity cost and what you should do never gets easier. Maybe it even gets harder as it goes. One thing about Will and Jake that I've noticed is that they're good at this, at hiring at, like, say like Jake always has people in the background, even during the podcast, like filling orders. I don't know what they're doing back there, but he's always got an assistant doing something. And Will too, even on his Kickstarter, he gets these teams involved, and I've been less, I want to do that, but I'm just almost not organized. I've got 2 assistants that are awesome. Every time they're going to show up, I always start thinking about it like 30 minutes before they get there. And then I scramble for what I'm going to have them do. Typically, I don't have all the stuff together. And then I'm like, well, I'm blowing this opportunity. Now I'm paying them for, I don't have anything together. It's just hard. I'm at the point where I need to scale a little bit, and I don't know how. I don't know how to allocate those resources, how to be a manager and then still get the work done. So I end up then doing it all myself. Like if I'm bagging prints, that's a horrible use of my time.
Right. You should be
I'm still bagging the print. Right. But I'm still bagging the print because I forget to take the supplies in for my assistant to have. It's just it's tough to do. And you guys have been a lot better about it than me.
Yes, we have. We really have.
Speaking of that, I got to go bag some prints. I got to go. I'll see you later.
Okay. All right.
It is. Everybody's learning different things at different speeds. And there's things that I'm looking at other people where I'm like, holy cow, how do they manage all of that stuff? And it's, you just take on what you can and you learn what you could do, and you do a little bit at a time, and eventually you're handling it all. I think that's it for this episode. We killed an hour, so let's wrap it up. What do you guys say?
Okay,
wrap.
Take us out.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. 3-Point Perspective is made possible by SVSLearn.com, where becoming a great illustrator starts. Go to SVSLearn.com and check it out. We've got tons of classes that you can download and watch, and learn how to become, like, what would we say? Light and shadow is a good one. Will's color theory class is amazing. We've got some character design classes. Anything that you're going to need to learn and know as an illustrator, we cover over there. So check that out. Your hosts have been Will Terry, Lee White, and Jake Parker. Will Terry can be found at willterry.com and also at Will Terry Art on Instagram. Lee White can be found at leewhiteillustration.com and also Lee White at Lee White Illo. On Instagram at Lee White Illo, whatever. And finally, I'm MrJakeParker.com. It's my website. And you can find me on Instagram at Jake Parker. The podcast.
I stick around at the end, by the way, just to hear you. It's entertaining for me to see if you can get through.
Yes. I don't want this job anymore. I'm going to give it to one of you guys. Podcast
don't try to opportunity cost us.
Our podcast is produced by Daniel 2, and you can find him at daniel2.co. That's danieltu.co. Special thanks to our SVS production manager, David Bro, helping keeping things running smoothly over here. And also thank you to our social media specialist, Lisa Fott, for all that she does to get these episodes out to the world via social media. All right. I think that's it. See you next time.